Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. So if you're a frequent viewer of my channel, you've probably seen both my best songs of 2022 video and my worst songs of 2022 video. And this is the final installment of that trilogy where we'll be discussing the most forgettable comebacks of the year so far. All the songs I'll be discussing here are ones that I didn't view to be memorable at all, and I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of you saw the entries that I put here and were like, oh yeah, that happened this year. And to be honest, I had to scroll through lists of every single comeback that happened this year in order to get more than like 5 entries, because I mean, if the song's forgettable, obviously I'm not gonna remember it off the top of my head. None of these songs were particularly awful, but they just didn't stand out in a good way either. But if I have anything positive to say about these songs, I'll make sure to include that as well. This isn't gonna be a top 10 like my other 2 videos, by the way, because I feel like it's kind of hard to rank songs based on how forgettable they were. So the order that I talk about them doesn't mean anything, okay? And without further ado, let's get into the first entry. First off, we have Bop Bop by VIVIZ, and I do kind of like this song. I have it saved on 1 or 2 of my playlists, but for their debut, I was definitely expecting something with a little bit more punch. Besides the intro, which is phenomenal, all of the other sections of Bop Bop just feel kind of generic, especially the chorus, and for a 2-part chorus that builds into the second half, they couldn't have made that transition any more predictable. I also really didn't like how they were doing that like pseudo-rap talking section in the second verse. I mean, we all know that G-Friend weren't rappers, so I don't know why they were doing anything that could even slightly resemble rap. That whole section kind of reminded me of something that a rookie girl group would do, where none of the members were trained in rap, but they still assigned the 2 weakest singers in the rap positions. So they kind of just did like a rhythmic talking thing. So I don't know if this is gonna make sense, but I feel like the singing felt pretty timid in a lot of the sections, I guess you could say. Like, we know that these girls can sing, they prove that in G-Friend even if they don't have Yuju anymore, but it kind of felt like they were using half their voices a lot of the time, or maybe as if they were too far away from the microphone when recording. I don't know, it's just in Bop Bop something felt off about the vocals, but it's still decent. I was just expecting something a bit more. Second, we have Drive, which is Miyeon from (G)I-DLE's solo debut. Now, I love a chill and bright song for the summer. My favorite type of vibe for music is something that you could listen to in the car with the windows rolled down. But just because a song is a little bit more laid back doesn't mean that it has to be boring like this. It felt very much so like a Taylor Swift B-side that people just ignore and pretend doesn't exist. Because like, it's trying to be a ballad, but it's not a ballad, and it's trying to be a pop song, but it's not quite a pop song. Basically, I feel like Drive feels very insecure in its identity and doesn't know what direction it wants to go in as a piece of music. I mean, the visuals were amazing for this area. Miyeon is just a complete stunner, and the styling and all was great. But I really would have preferred something a little bit more up-tempo, with a bit more of a catchy hook, because nothing in Drive will get stuck in your head the next day. And I think that's what the worst part about Drive is that none of the melodies are really memorable at all. Probably because Soyeon didn't take part in the creative process. For the next section, it's kind of just an overall section. It's all of the boy group debuts from this year except for Tempest. I'm talking TNX, Superkind, I'm sure there's a bunch of other ones, but I'm just forgetting about them, because I cannot remember a single one of these debuts from this year. None of them made any noise except for TNX kinda, but that's only from people who watched that survival show, and none of the songs made it on any of my playlists. I don't know what it is, all of these songs are loud yet at the same time underwhelming, and it's like we had a good formula for noise music back in 2020 and 2019, why don't you just steal from MCND or Ateez or Stray Kids? It seems like all of these rookie groups are trying so hard not to be like the popular 4th gen boy groups, but in the end it kind of makes them all sound the same. Or even if they do have a quote-unquote unique debut, such as that boy group Tan that debuted from another survival show, the music is still somehow forgettable. I love standing new groups. I think getting into rookie groups can be one of the most fun things ever in K-pop, but I haven't gotten into any rookies, and if I have, they've been girl groups because these boy groups have not been delivering recently, which is pretty disappointing. Next up we have Thank You by Brave Girls, and I do actually think that this was a good song, but it kind of got overshadowed because I believe it was released on the same day as Tomboy, and we all saw the impact that Tomboy not only had on the K-pop scene, but just the world. Okay, that was kind of a hyperbole, but like everybody was talking about it. Meanwhile, Brave Girls can't really seem to get any traction unless they release a summer song. I think the reason why I forgot about Thank You is because it was retro, and I've talked about how much I dislike retro in so many of my recent videos. Like, if Brave Girls are gonna do retro, then it has to be city pop, and if it's not city pop, then I will not be streaming. It also didn't help that the entire album had same song syndrome. None of them were bad, but if you played a random song from the album and told me to guess which one it was, I would not have an answer for you. And it's like, you guys come from Brave Brothers, the same people who made I.O.I's entire discography. They have hundreds of hits hidden in the vaults, but they keep selling their songs to other groups and leaving Brave Girls in the dust. Like, he should probably focus on his own group for once. I don't know, I'm a fan of Brave Girls and I just think they deserve better, but Brave Brothers are setting them up and it's not fair at all. Next up we have Cheese in the Trap by Moonbyul, where she put on her pop rock wig for a second and tried to do the same thing that Yena did with Smiley. And I think my problem with Cheese in the Trap is that Moonbyul really does not fit this concept at all. I mean, who hears Moonbyul and the first thing they think of is schoolgirl? Definitely not me. When I first listened to this song and watched the music video, the first thing my brain did was make the comparisons to Smiley, and Cheese in the Trap kind of just felt like a watered down version of Smiley, and I felt like Smiley was a lot more fun and Yena fit the concept a lot better than Moonbyul, sadly. I'm not saying that Moonbyul has bad solo music. I mean, Lunatic was one of my favorite songs of this year, but I do think that Cheese in the Trap was definitely a step down from Lunatic, which kind of makes sense because Cheese in the Trap was only released like a few months after Lunatic. I think Moonbyul should definitely wait a little bit more for her next comeback and really perfect the songs that she's gonna put out, because I don't think Cheese in the Trap was an accurate representation of what she's really capable of. You ready for love like this? Are you ready for love like this? Are you ready for Next up we have Yummy Yummy Love by Momoland, and I blame K-pop stans for this one, because why did they decide to completely change their sound for their first comeback in like 2 years? For those who don't know, I stan Momoland, and I actually really enjoy the sound that they had during like Boom Boom and I'm So Hot. And sure, the songs might have sounded similar to each other, but that doesn't mean they weren't good. It's literally just called having a signature sound. But this time they decided to do this like jazz, scat, Broadway number, I mean off Broadway, but still. And it was really not that good. First of all, that scatting in the pre-chorus was just horrendous. I think they should never do that again. And this is one of the most underwhelming choruses that I've ever heard. I mean, even just in the audio, their voices literally sounded bored while singing it. But I can't blame them because I would be too if I was given this song. The rapping was also horrendous, but not horrendous enough for me to put it in the worst comebacks of the year video. But everything that wasn't bad was just painfully mediocre. I have a very big bone to pick with MLD Entertainment because they do not know how to give their groups good music. And at this point, I just want Momoland to be free from this frickin' company. Next up we have Maison by Dreamcatcher, which isn't really bad, but it's definitely one of their worst title tracks overall. You can't call this era underwhelming because they got both their first and their second win as a group, which I'm so happy for them. But Maison as a title track does not hold a candle to like Scream or Boca or Because or even I.DLE. Dreamcatcher are known for their hard-hitting, intense rock sound, but this kind of felt like a subdued version of that and definitely lacked a lot of personality that their other title tracks had. The chorus didn't even really feel like a chorus, and the pre-chorus was so brief and abrupt. The only really good part was Dami's rap, but that's always one of the best part of Dreamcatcher's songs, so that's nothing new. And I wish they could have gotten their first win earlier with one of their better title tracks. Obviously, it's just a good thing that it happened eventually, but overall, I just feel like Maison was a letdown, especially being released right after Because, which might be my favorite overall title track from the group. And finally for this video, we have Pop by Nayeon, which was her solo debut. Now hear me out, was Pop a bad song? No. But was it the worst song on the album? Yeah, it was. It's kind of surprising because the title track is usually supposed to set the tone for the entire album, but Pop sounds nothing like any of the other songs. But honestly, I'm glad that it panned out that way because the rest of the album is so much better. I didn't think that Pop was bad, but it did sound so generic, and I would literally never go out of my way to actively listen to it, but every single B-side on the album was a smash hit. Don't even get me started on Happy Birthday to You or All or Nothing. And overall, Pop was forgettable to me because if somebody asked me what I thought about her solo debut, I'd be like, oh my gosh, did you hear Love Countdown? And I would probably steer all of the conversation away from the actual title track. A good era definitely, but I'm just not the biggest fan of the song that's going to be representing the era as a whole. And that concludes this video. I hope you all enjoyed, and if you did, consider leaving a like or even subscribing. Make sure to comment what you think the most forgettable songs of the year were in the comment section down below, and without further ado, I'll see you all in the next video. Peace out.